Welcome to the In Between podcast. Today I am chatting with Bri Ramos, branding expert, fractional CMO, and advocate for helping others discover and share their identity as a path to fulfilling their life mission. She is the co-founder of the Pause Retreat, a luxury retreat for high-achieving women. Additionally, 2025 marks 11 years of her brand, the Buzz brand, the branding and marketing agency that she launched with her sisters. And I'm selfishly so excited to have Bri here. Bri and I work together, and she's just a wealth in all the things. So Bri, welcome to the In Between podcast.
So happy to be here.
I literally, when we first started working together, I'm like, I need to get Bri on the podcast because I feel like you've probably had a million in-between moments as a female entrepreneur. You've seen it all. You've been in so many different phases of business, from tech to branding to marketing, all the things. Yeah. So I would love for you to just share a little bit of your background and really what led you up to starting your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Las Vegas. Were you from there, Cassidy?
Yeah, born and raised. Yeah.
Born and raised. Oh my gosh, I didn't know.
We're a rarity.
It is so rare.
I know, Megan and I talked about it too.
Like, there is so much of my identity that is like in that of like I remember when I had to change my license and had to change my license plate and had to change, when I switched everything over from like Nevada to Oklahoma. The one thing I have not changed is my phone number. So I still have the 702.
Yeah, you have to have the 702 forever.
Yeah. A tiny little piece of me. So I was born and raised in Las Vegas. I never really knew I was a creative person. I bet my mom would say different, but I went to school. I came to OU in 2007 and I went to the University of Oklahoma, and I found that I wanted to be a teacher. And so I spent 4 years getting my degree in education, and then I graduated and quickly realized I didn't want to be a teacher. So, which, I think a lot of people go through that of like, you're so young when you're in college.
I know. It's crazy that they make us decide, because it's like, not that I do nothing with the degree, but like my degree was in personal training and like kinesiology. And I'm like, now I'm in social media marketing.
Yeah, right. Totally different tracks. Yeah. I think what I learned from that, like after I transitioned out of like being a teacher in the classroom, I did do that for a little bit. I'm an educator at my core. And so like the heart is still there. The implementation's just different, Yeah. So I was working when I graduated, I was full-time at a nonprofit, and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to go back to school to do maybe administration, like education, kind of be on the administrative level to try and make an impact there versus like being in the classroom. And so I was working at a boutique on Campus Corner here in Norman, and it was right at the rise of like e-commerce and Shopify and Pinterest and Instagram, and I helped them launch their e-commerce site. And it was one of the first ones, especially out of the boutiques like on Campus Corner, that launched. And so I totally just learned how to do it when I was in that role. And I was like, wow, I love this. I love brand. I love the marketing side of things. And one thing led to another of like, oh, you did it for them. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? One thing led to another, and it became my full-time job of branding companies and building websites. And 11 years later, we are now a full-service marketing agency. So
that is so cool. I love that. Well, our stories are so similar too, because I just fell into it and I was like, wait, this is kind of fun. I don't know if you could do this as a job, but I'll try it. And like zero background at it, didn't go to school for it. And I think for me personally, like I struggled with so much imposter syndrome in the beginning, because I was like, oh my God, I don't have all these things. Like I don't have a marketing degree. I don't have a degree in business. And I just stumbled upon social media and used Google University to figure it out,
I always say YouTube University. Like, they're like, how did you go to school for this? And I'm like, yep, YouTube University. That's how I got through learning how to do everything. But I think too, with, things like we do, in this creative space, you can learn how to do anything you want on the internet, and that's part of the beauty of it, because you can continuously educate yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think what a lot of people don't realize too in marketing and social media and brand is there's a huge psychology part to it. So there's the craft part of, implementation and knowing what you're doing and algorithms and psychology of color and things like that, but it's really about understanding people. So if you have that natural skill set to understand people and know how to communicate with them, whether that's your clients that you work with or the audiences that you're communicating to, there's like such a huge element of understanding people that goes into, marketing jobs like we have. So
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And we're going to touch on storytelling later because it's something we're both passionate about. But before we move on to the business side of things, one thing that I noticed you talk a lot about just from following you and consuming some of, articles you've written and things like that is talking about identity, obviously from a business perspective. We could go into that forever, but also I think it's important to discuss in terms of your story and personal brand, like where does identity play a role and how did you have to, develop your identity to a point where hey, I am a business owner. I do take that seriously because I think that's such a hard shift from like, oh, I stumbled into this. I'm doing it as a hobby or like I'm getting a couple clients and now I have 6 clients and I need to be a LLC,
Yeah, of course. Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So identity really, I'm going to talk about it in several different kind of ways here. So when in my nonprofit work that I did prior to starting my business and learning how to be an educator and working with, I wanted to teach like inner city LA. So I really tried to get a good grip on the inner city school system and how all that worked. And what I realized in my time of doing all of that and working with at-risk youth was our society is in a complete identity crisis, especially at that age. I was working with middle school and younger, and I realized they don't know who they are. They are just in such a season of figuring that out, and they have so many influences, and a lot of those are marketing and culture related. And I saw the power of being able to still reach that demographic that I thought I wanted to be in the classroom with and still impact them in a positive way through working with clients that their message is going to get out to, all of society. And so with kind of like our philosophy and approach to marketing when we work with clients is value add. So when you are, crafting content for social media or thinking about your sales funnel or whatever it may be, a lot of people default to like, we do this and this, and they talk about they sell versus add value to their audience. And so I always want to make sure that the campaigns and things that we do add value because I know the importance of its ripple effect and impact, which trickles all the way down to like what our youth is consuming, if that makes sense. So that is one piece of the identity story that helped really create a foundation for BuzzBrain and for our company. I look at our agency as something so much bigger than us, and we are just kind of like the stewards of implementing it. But I know the impact that our messaging and things can have on consumers of today. So, and I don't take that lightly. I think today also, like with how algorithms work and paying for ads, like you can serve a message to anyone that you want. Like companies can identify you, Cassidy, all the way down to the things that you love and having gone to Target in the last week and serve you an ad that they want you to see. And as consumers, like that's not really fair, essentially, that, things are put in front of us that we have to consume. So as a marketer, I feel like we have the responsibility to make sure we're making people laugh or adding value to them or making their life a little bit better because they don't really have the option, essentially, to not see some of that messaging.
Yeah.
So the next part of this like identity piece of me as a business owner. So I always tell people you should kind of like, I used to say you should like rebrand every 3 to 5 years or when you have a big change in your company, in your life, whatever. Now I look at it as like personally, when you go through a shift and a season ends or it changes or you have a child or you change jobs or, something big that causes you to change seasons, you have to constantly rediscover your identity of who you are. And I'll give it the example of a working mom. So when I started my business, it was my now husband and we were just out of college, essentially. He was still finishing up, and I worked 18 hours a day, and it was no big deal. And you know what I mean? All I cared about was us, our dog, and the company. And so I sprinted and I ran, and I think that was part of the success of the company. And I did that for about 5 years, 4.5 years. And at year 5, it was super exciting because I was able to hire on both my sisters. So Megan has had a 20 plus year career in PR and marketing and lived in Orange County, lived in California for a long time and worked with incredible companies and clients. And then my sister, Sarah, Megan's the oldest, Sarah's the middle, I'm the baby. Sarah was running social media for Luxor was her for MGM International. I was going to say Caesar. It's not MGM International. And so they both had incredible skill sets. And I said, hey, come work for me. I'm growing. Come work with me. I'm growing. And I want you guys to be a part of it. And it became a family business, and it has been ever since. So we got really lucky that all of our skill sets complement each other. So when that came, I was like, oh, one, I'm the baby sister. So in any dynamic of growing up, it was them against me. Okay. And so when they came on board with BuzzBrand and it became our family business, I really had to shift that identity of okay, this is a business. This is, like you said, it's not just I was doing it on the side or whatever. This is a real business. Mm-hmm. And that shift was hard because I still didn't have children yet, and I could still run fast, and they had their kids, which had allowed them to work from home, which was phenomenal. And with that shift, you go through the highs and lows of working with family and just that balancing act. Anybody who has a family business, or even when you don't work together, it's just, family never stops, or, there's always something, hey, mom, dad, whatever it is. And you add that into the mix of business, and, it's just something that you have to navigate. We've been very fortunate. We've been able to, not everybody can, and so I love that about my family. And my mentor at the time said, you guys need to have a tiebreaker because there's 3 of us. So if 2 of us, whatever, what are you going to do for the third? Well, our tiebreaker person is actually our oldest brother, Chad. He is the level-headed, can look at any scenario, knows us well enough to know the insides and out, but can help us make a decision if, we need to lean one way or the other. And so we pull him into our work, here and there. So once I had a child, I became this working mom, and this was one of the hardest identity shifts that I had to make, because I needed to learn to shift my attention somewhere else, rightfully so, to my child and my pregnant body growing a human and, all the things. But I loved, and I still do, I love working. I absolutely love what I do. And the reason I love what I do is because it's part of my identity of who I am and the giftings that God's given me. And I love being a steward of that every single day, most days. But I had to learn how to love to be a mom and learn how to be a mom. I have an incredible mother. I was raised by an incredible family. I have incredible examples of mothers all across my childhood friends. But I really had to learn that skill set. And Megan and Sarah both stayed at home with their kids. And here I am going, what's the earliest I can get her into daycare? Mm-hmm. And I didn't necessarily want to stay home with her at first. And then I had her and I was like, oh, I never want to work again. Changed my mind quickly. It was great because I got to take her to work with me. I have so many pictures of her as just a tiny infant baby in our offices and with our interns. And I love that she got to be a part of that season of BuzzBrand because it was one of the best one of the best seasons of the company, just as far as like fullness and our team and how many people we were reaching and different things like that. So those different identity shifts of going like, okay, I am now a business owner and I accept that and I love that. And then going, I need to step away a little bit from being a business owner. Mm-hmm. And especially once you have a family, you're not just responsible for yourself anymore. It's not like, yeah, ramen is fine tonight. No, you gotta like, you're responsible for making it run like a real business. And anybody who is an entrepreneur and is dating somebody or married to somebody who is not an entrepreneur or has a normal job, which I highly recommend, only one in the family be an entrepreneur, is that support that you have to have from them of your schedule's never normal. People need you all the time. Boundaries are hard and bills have to be paid, essentially. So those hard conversations of, hey, client didn't pay on time, but I'll get my share of rent or mortgage, in a couple of weeks. Or, there's just a lot of instability, especially in your startups, of it being a side hustle, and it not being your full-time thing. Sometimes that can get tricky. So the big identity shift of going, okay, I got to switch to being a mom more so than a business owner. How do I do that? What should I do? I was also getting a little bit burnt out of just, this, when you run an agency, you don't have one boss, you have however many clients you have, and you have to answer to every single one of them. You know what I mean? And so I was just like, agency life is fast and it's hard. And I was ready to.
How many years were you in before you had your daughter? Okay.
5 to 6. Yeah, 5 to 6.
Which is a hard point too, right? Like most businesses don't even make it there.
I always say, give your idea or your relationship or whatever 2 years, because within 2 years, you'll probably have seen highs and lows, but give something at least 2 years to see if you want to stick with it and still do it. And yeah, at 5 years, I was like, okay, I'm still in this. So long story short, I stepped back a little bit. Megan and Sarah ran the company and I went into like the corporate world. So I was the creative director at a college here in Oklahoma and I loved it. Absolutely loved that. I got to be back in education and I got to market something that I loved and believed in and really had just a fun time and an incredible team at the college that I got to work with. So those couple years were fantastic. It kind of refilled my cup for my love and creativity of doing things. And I got to get out of the everyday life of just agency 24/7. And it gave me a kind of, I'd say, normal 9 to 5 and insurance and a stable paycheck and, just like all the things we really wanted and needed at the time. So from there, while the agency was still running, I was headhunted to go be head of brand at a tech company here in Oklahoma City. And they did app development and AI and cybersecurity and all things in that world, software development. And I love that. It was one of the first times in several years I had really been challenged because it was a world I knew nothing about. Like, with social media, you kind of have to become an expert in whatever your clients do as you are creating content. Even on our calls, I'm like, wow, yeah, she nailed that. Like, that was great. Like, she got, like, you had to do your research and you're probably learning a lot, And so which I think my core wiring of being a lifelong learner and an educator, it really helps me in this job.
I was going to say you're curious and that's the goal.
And I love to learn. Like, it's funny, my husband, he'd rather watch a movie or a documentary or listen to something, and I'm like in a book. You know what I mean? Like, we just learn and consume differently, and I'm very thankful that I'm a lifelong learner that just, like craves new knowledge all the time, because that's just part of the game of working with, clients in different industries. So I was there for a few years. They did, big tech has had layoffs over the years. And that's when I shifted to being a fractional CMO for companies. And so instead of having several clients, I contracted with just a few and for larger contracts. And I served just as their fractional CMO, which allowed me to do their full marketing strategy and then either connect them with the people to execute or the vendors or train their in-house team and really do the strategy part of marketing, which I loved. And so I've kind of done all those things in throughout my career. And now We are back to Buzz Brand. And so I'm back full time. I'm loving every second of it. And we're really growing and scaling the business this year in ways we've never done before. And so the day to day now is Megan and Sarah, or is Megan and myself. And we are really growing it. Before we were brand and website and messaging and things like that. And now we're really shifting to digital marketing because my like rally cry this year is helping women business owners get found online. Like we cannot, the brand is wonderful and we need it and it's got to be beautiful and the website has to be great, but if it's not working for you, then it's not doing anything. And so now I'm like, okay, next step is we have to make sure all of this beautiful brand and social media is getting found online. So yeah, that's how we're scaling. Was a long answer.
I'm obsessed with all of it. I'm obsessed with all of it. I'm like, okay, we need to nitpick everything. I want to focus on the personal side first, and then like I have a million questions about branding and all the things. So you talk a lot about obviously all these transitions. You literally mentioned probably 17 in between moments in between it all. And you mentioned having a mentor and some other things. Obviously, you're an avid reader. What are practices or daily things that you did from both a mental wellness side and a, personal professional development side that allowed you to go through these transitions and make the right choices? Because I think even when you said you went back to a 9 to 5 as an entrepreneur, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how do you not sit there and think, is that a failure? Obviously it's not, but that's a conversation. So what are some things that you do, and maybe they're different back then than what you do now, that keep you in track in your identity and who you are?
So this is one of the most important things I think an agency owner or an entrepreneur can do is, focus on their mental health and their mental wellness and physical, of course. But one of the ways that I've tried to do that over the years is having a hobby. And that was so hard for me because what so many people do is like they're really good at something or their hobby, they get really good at it. Maybe that's like, I don't know, painting or flipping a house or whatever it is. And then they're like, oh, I can make money off this and this can be my full-time thing. And then all of a sudden you have your own agency, you know what I mean? So my hobby was always like doing something creative. And so finding a hobby outside of that, like, was so hard. Like, I don't like to mountain climb or like sports necessarily, or go for a run, or I don't know, canoeing, it was so hard for me to find a hobby. And when you make your work, even as much as you love it, and even if you're so good at it, anything in excess is never good. So having something to just balance yourself and completely shut your mind off from work, I think is super, super important because it's going to give you it's going to give you longevity in the long run. You know what I mean? So having a hobby, I think, is absolutely crucial. Mine right now is gardening. So it's still like my house. I tried to make it like renovating my house, and we bought our house in 2020 and we're renovating the whole thing. But that's still creative and psychology of color and design, and it's just a different output, which I love it, but that can't necessarily be my hobby because it's still all the same parts of my brain. At least with gardening, it is still aesthetics and all those things, but I get to like be in the dirt and ground myself and make something beautiful out of things that are living, and then try and not kill them, which I do all the time. And, learn something new about the soil and how, our flowers, the nutrients that they need, and there's so much like care and love and attention, but it's so rewarding to see when everything flourishes, or like the rose finally climbs the wall, or, it's so, and then it makes our house more beautiful and, more like home and a beautiful place for my family. So I've loved doing that as my hobby. Your other question was professional.
Yeah. Like professional development type.
Okay, professional development, a mentor, and I've had several throughout my career, and all in different seasons for all different things. So I believe everybody should have my best friend Carly told me this. Everybody should have a friend in a different decade. So you should have a friend that is very old. and a friend in every decade, because it gives you so much insight to just so many different worldviews, from little kids to elderly, like have other people in your life. I had a business coach, like a business mentor for several years of starting my business. And that was crucial because I had not one clue. No, what I also have found is nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody is just figuring it out. Like nobody knows what they're doing. Everyone's figuring it out. And that you need somebody to help you along the way. So find a mentor, whether that you need that in business, personally, whatever it is, both. I had and have both, because your mental and emotional wellness will directly tie to the success of your business. Like it is a non-negotiable, and the success of your family and the success of balancing it all. And, you have to be super intentional about those type of things. Also, something that I really learned that was really helpful is like, you can't do everything. So outsource as you grow. I get it. You're doing everything. You're doing all the things. But if this is your side hustle, keep the side hustle. So as you grow your business, you can grow it right. Hire the CPA, hire the person to run social media, hire, if you don't know how to brand and do your website, hire out for that. Like you have to know that you can't do it all. And if you are trying to do it all, certain things are going to fall flat, and you're stealing the opportunity to just pour into your strengths and do the things that you're really good at. You know what I mean?
And I want to mention, given how we got connected in this conversation, is, if you're in a place in your business where you're like, okay, well, I can only afford X, Y, and Z. Yeah. The answer is always no, unless you ask, because in my head, you and your company are so much farther ahead of me and could hire any social media person in the world. And Bri and her team approached me and talked about doing a trade that now benefits both of us. Yeah. And I'm learning so much, and I'm also helping them, and they're helping me with my business. And it's like, while that's not sustainable forever or for everyone, ask how other business owners, because especially women, like we want to help each other. And if it benefits both people, and that's like what I've done for the past, I've been in business for 4 years, and there's so many different times where I've been like, hey, can I do this for you? Can I barter? And now I'm paying them, or now I'm doing whatever. Right. But I completely agree with you, because I've had a business coach this whole time too. I think I maybe did a year without it, and I was like, what am I doing? How do I do this? But before that, I also looked at the clients I was working with, and I was like, okay, what can I learn from them? Because most of the time when they're hiring me, as your business is the same, they've already gone through layers of their business. They've already experienced things that I can now learn from them. And absolutely. I think being an entrepreneur is bootstrapping, but looking at your community and being like, hey, what can I learn? And that's just so valuable.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Another thing when it comes to identity as a female and a female business owner is boundaries. Boundaries are really hard. Really, maybe not for everybody, but in general, boundaries are really hard.
For a high achieving woman, yes.
For high achieving women, boundaries are so hard. And you will not get better at them unless you put them in place. Like you have to do the hard thing to do that, you have to practice, you have to flex that muscle in order to get better at it. And that's even something just in the last couple of months that I've been like, wow, I need to set a whole new set of boundaries in this season of the business. And, and it's been hard, but it has given me so much strength and power setting those. I'm like, oh my gosh, I told Megan, I'm like, we are not going to get walked all over. We're not doing that. We're not, but I'm like, we have put ourselves in this place because we've allowed it, because we said good customer service is always being available. And, really that's how I was going to say, and they, like
that's the hardest part
for them. And so, and I get that, and it's their whole life, and it's 24/7, and
everyone has their own version of boundaries, right? So, I work on the weekends, but I use a handy dandy tool where the email doesn't send until Monday, because I don't want my clients to know that, right? Like I want that to be my peaceful time where I creatively work, and I'm not getting bombarded on a Saturday. But like, using that boundary of like, okay, well, I need to send this email because it's in my head right now. I'm going to schedule it. So they think I'm working on Monday at 8 a.m., but I'm not, you know? And it is so hard, especially in our industry, because people from their side, when they're not in marketing, they're not in social media, they think, oh, it's 24/7, which it is, right? Like press, social media is 24/7, but ourselves, we cannot work that way. And I think, you know, going back to you talking about having your child and all of those things, like that is a huge transition for women, because that's when we realize we can't do it all, right? Like we can't. And I mean, I'm not there yet, but I like dread it because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I love being available. I love being to have all this time. And I think you're so right. It's just boundaries are almost like you're talking about your identity. You need to reevaluate them potentially every year.
Absolutely. Yeah. And every season, like even if you add a new service onto your business or whatever it is, go, okay, this is changing who we are. Like this has changed a little bit who we are, and address those things. And just, you've got to be really intentional when people, and in their personal life, when they have changes. And this is a lot of the work that we do with women, with, you know, our community and our retreat and different things like that, is you have to rediscover that identity in every season, because if you don't, you land yourself in an identity crisis. That is true to you personally and in your business. If your business is a pizza company and you start selling cheeseburgers and everyone knows, you know, that you thought you were a pizza company and now you're a cheeseburger company, like you have to be intentional about changing your identity and letting people know what you do, and, you know, all that different stuff. So even when I tell people that too, like, well, how, you know, women that are like, well, I was an accountant and then now I run social media, or like whatever it is, you have to be intentional about letting people know that, you know, you're now an expert in this and this is what you're doing. And that's where personal brand comes in, marketing and social media.
And that's where I wanted to go next, because one thing I have loved about just getting to know you and consuming your content is you have established such an incredible personal brand that like flows so effortlessly with both of your businesses. And I would love for you to offer, I mean, any tips or tricks to like whoever wants to establish themselves as a personal brand. But I think what you've done really well, and this is a compliment to you, is like you've created yourself as a thought leader. And you've said like, I am a thought leader in this industry. And obviously all of your years and years of work have proved you to be that, but like you've established yourself. You didn't wait for other people to be like, oh, Bri Ramos, like she's done all these things. And I think that's something as women that we wait for someone else to tell us that we're that. And you've inserted yourself and you're like, no, this is who I am. And this is why you should hire the Buzz brand. And could you just go into that? And like, obviously I'm sure there's so much self-work that went into that.
I think what has helped me, it goes back to the identity piece of knowing who I am, knowing what I'm called to in this life, knowing what my giftings are. I've done a lot of the hard work of diving into myself. So I love things like assessments, like, you know, what's your love language? What's your, for me, my spiritual gift tests I take every couple of years, because it kind of usually stays the same. But like, what are my gifts from the Holy Spirit? How is my creative brain wired? How do I work with other people? How do I feel the most validated? And how do you feel the most validated? So I really have enjoyed those type of like assessments of helping me figure out who I am and why I'm wired the way that I'm wired. And then realizing the things that come easy to me, and you mentioned you feel like my personal brand flows so well. It's because it's flowing from a place of me knowing who I am and the things that I love. And that's what I put my time and energy into, you know? And so that took a long time. That was hard. I mean, imposter syndrome, all the things, changing your, you know, throughout the different seasons of who you are and the things that you do. Like that has been definitely a journey. What I came to find after I kind of went through I thought I wanted to be a teacher and then now I don't. So now what do? I realized that my purpose on earth is to help women discover their identity and then teach them how to share it with the world. Branding is all about who you are. It's all about diving into what you offer, what your company differentiator is, of what makes you different. When you dive into your personal brand, it's the same thing. Like, what do you love? What do you offer? What are you good at? And then the marketing side of it comes in with, okay, now it's time to share it with the world. We all have a very specific set of talent, skills, and abilities. It's up to us to discover and find them and then figure out how we share it with the world. When I say share it with the world, that world could be your family. It could be your husband. It could be your clients. It could be the whole world. We all have our own version of our different little world, but I think we have a responsibility to figure out what those giftings are and then figure out how we're supposed to share them. And so that's what I feel like you see in my brand is I am called to women in this world to help them and to help them figure out who they are and how they can be a blessing to other people. And I do that. I've done that in every different season. So I did that, as an educator with littles. I've done that with the business owners that we've worked with. I've done that with the clients that or the audiences that we've impacted. I'm now doing that as a mother. I'm now doing that as a wife, and so my calling has stayed very consistent and I have no confusion over it. It's just been executed in different ways in every different season of my life.
Yeah. And I think that's the key right there is like, who you are, who you're trying to impact and what you're trying to do. So it's very easy to go out and do it because does this serve someone? And I think it's interesting. It's almost like we need a course for business owners to get to that place because oftentimes, and I'm sure you run into this too, I sit down with a business owner and they think social media is going to solve their problems. And I immediately identify that they don't have anything that you just discussed. And that's why I personally, in my business, my focus is storytelling and value-based as yours is. And that's why we align so much because I could care less if the trend worked. I could care less if, you get 10,000 followers. I care more about you telling your story as why you're so passionate about this business and why you do what you do. And I know you touched a little bit on the value-based and the storytelling-based, but I would love from more of a client perspective, if you were in a sales position right now of like, why is that important? And if a business owner is listening to this and they're not leading with value, if they're not leading with storytelling, if they're following the trends and doing what everyone else is doing, why that's really not serving them.
Yeah, sure. This goes back to understanding people. This goes back to like the psychology side of things. And people are very selfish and they only care about themselves. Like they want to know how this is going to help them. And not even, that does sound selfish, but like, it's just like, how can I make the toy room and organizing easier in my life? Well, when I see something that shows, that's a solution to that, I'm going to buy that. And so it's really all about solving people's problems, but you have to be creative in the way that you let them know that you solve that problem, right? And so instead of saying like, buy one, get one free on these acrylic organizers, it's, showing them you get to be in a more peaceful place because the chaos of the room is no longer there, and this is how you can do it. You know what I mean? And so it's not about things being, color coded and organized. It's about being in a place of peace and not complete chaos at the end of the day when the kids are done playing. And so it's just, it's approaching it from a creative way of how does your product or service relieve a pain point? What are their biggest pain points? And then how do you solve them? And that's what you speak to.
And I love the way you described that because it made me think of UGC, influencer marketing, all the fun ways we get to market. And I am such a huge fan of UGC for that exact reason, because instead of being like, buy this product, it's someone showing you how they use the product in real life and how it's helping them. And it is literally the easiest way. I mean, if you're a product-based business, like the easiest way to show in real time what your product does for your ideal audience.
Yeah. And how it's solving problems and in all different, especially when you have different target audiences, maybe, a mom, a traveling dad, whatever, you have to speak to each of those stories in a different way, obviously. And you can have different segments in your audience, but you want to solve their biggest pain points versus selling them, your product.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I also want to make sure we touch on the pause retreat, and this kind of, blends everything we've discussed in the sense that you serve high achieving entrepreneurial women. I mean, not always entrepreneurs, but people who are often entrepreneurs and working really hard, but also need a time to pause. So I would love for you to share your heart behind that and what it is.
Okay, yeah. So I've been doing women's retreats for the last several years. So we've gone to Tulum, we've gone to the beach in Florida, Utah, a ranch. We've done these in all different places. So
Cool.
as I've gone through this, growing as a business owner and knowing that identity shifts come in different seasons, because women wear so many hats and we run so fast, we don't take the time to pause and pour into ourselves for 5 seconds. And so we wanted to create something that could create an experience for high achieving women, many that are mothers right now, or like kids are, off to college or whatever it is, but they know the balance of trying to manage your household while managing a company or working high up at, the C-suite level or whatever it is. And just give them a few days to serve them and pour into them and grab their bag at the door and hand them a glass of bubbles and say, sit down, breathe, relax. And then we spend 2.5 days of just intense curriculum of what hats are they wearing right now in this season? What is not serving them? What do they want more of? How do they create space and margin in their life? Who do they want to be in this season? Do they need to be the mom who is 100% in right now in that role? Or can the pendulum swing and, dad or whoever is covering this side of things, or daughter's off to college now, and now they can swing back to being 100% business owner or whatever it is. And so we really we work with each of them on a very individual level to pull those things out of them. And the purpose of it is, one, to just pause and to take a second and to quiet the noise and to pour into yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And so we want to refill these women before they go back into the super quick, fast paced, race of life, and give them a way to pour back into their family and their communities and their kids and their jobs and their clients from a more full place. But we know that like a 3-day weekend can't solve that. And so we really equip them with, okay, how can you do this sustainably over the next year, to where you're doing it a little bit every month, so you don't get to a place where you've crashed and burned out and you're like, I got to go on a retreat. You know what I mean? The retreat is like the most incredible part of it. But, we really want to empower women to take time for themselves. And I think, people ask, like, what makes a leader? What makes a good leader? My answer to that all the time is emotional intelligence. Like, if you have a high EQ, like, you will be able to lead a family or an organization or a business or whatever it is. Like, I've had bosses that I don't feel had a very high EQ, and I was just like, that is why they will never thrive in this role, because they can't manage that part of it. And I just think in leadership, having a high EQ is super important. So that's and the other part of it. So Sarah, our other sister, she leads that side of the business with me. She's a comedian and she's so funny. And so everything, we laugh.
I love her Instagram.
It's very serious. There are tears and crying and letting things go into the fire and burning them, and like carrying each other's burdens and all the things. But there's so much laughter, because laughter and joy and play are just so crucial. So we also really incorporate play. So, whether we're going on a hike or sitting on the beach or learning something new, like, play is so, and that's something that I learned too in my early childhood years of early childhood development when I was becoming a teacher. Play is so crucial to the way our minds develop, and we just let go of that later in life. And so we have to get back to the hobby or things that make us happy and bring us joy outside of our jobs and outside of our families. So
amen. It's so true. And I think those things are what helps develop your emotional intelligence even further. Yeah. And we're transitioning out of this man's world where we don't do any of that, and we go into work and everything's serious, to like okay, I'm going on this pause retreat and I'm actually
Yeah.
going to become a better leader because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the women are like, oh yeah, no, my company's paying for this.
Yeah.
Like it is personal and professional development
100%.
a million times over. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. For
No,
sure.
I love the name too. You guys are so good at
Oh,
that. You're
thanks.
like,
That's so funny
the
that
name
we were
makes
like,
it.
that's so lame. Like we like could not land on the name and we are like, we're never gonna get out the door, just launch it. And we are like,
Yeah.
okay, it's the pause retreat.
No, I think it's so good
It-
because it tells you exactly
yeah, it
what you're
does.
going to get. Like, it's
It
like,
does.
this is what you're going to get. You're going to pause.
Yeah.
You're going to experience this. And when you feel that word, to me, it feels like a breath of fresh air. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what I need.
Yeah. And what we realized too, we keep it small, so it's like 15 women max because we want everyone to have their own room, or you can share a room, but we just want everybody to like be comfortable and it not be too many people and for it to be intimate and have very like you sign an NDA before you go in, like nothing is shared. And we realized though, one, that limits us to how many people we can do this with every year.
Yeah.
Like we just did ours
You
for
can't go on
this
a
year.
pause retreat every
Yeah,
weekend
yeah,
virtually.
exactly. So we launched the Pause Community, which is that monthly like microdosing throughout the year of these different topics. And so last month we had a therapist we had Say It Mental Health. We had Sarah
Yes.
Valor on as our guest. I told her I would send her the recording so that you guys can clip
Yes.
social
And
for us.
Sarah's on the podcast a couple episodes before this. So
Oh, amazing.
she's,
Great.
she's awesome.
Yes, she's so wonderful. So she was our guest and she talked about, all the things that impact high achieving women. And I learned more from her in 5 minutes than I
Oh
have in
my
my whole
gosh.
career about wellness,
I
mental
go every
health.
2 weeks to record content and I drive home and I'm like, I have work to
Mm,
do.
yeah.
Like, she's just speaking to me the whole time. And
That's
like,
so great.
I'm like coming up with her ideal audience and I'm like, well, what do I need to hear this week?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. There it
Yeah.
is. So,
Okay, there it is. Let's talk about that. Yeah. So, and then this month I'm doing how to brand yourself in your job community and in your house,
oh
in
my
like within your family. And
gosh.
so
I didn't even know
that's
about
what's
this
happening.
community side of things. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I gotta
So,
check
well,
it
yeah.
out.
So it's a monthly membership. So instead of, having a big upfront payment of going on a retreat and leaving your family and getting away for the weekend and buying a flight, we, and I should know this, $49 a month, I believe. And there's like questions in the community throughout the month. And then we have one live where you jump on and can ask questions. And we have a topic that we talk about. And it's like your little microdose, 1 hour to yourself a month. Like you can do that,
Well, and it's other people
for
who
that.
are in your phase of life or at least
Yeah.
just a high achieving woman that you can
Yeah.
connect with and
Mhm.
understand you on a deeper level.
And I mean, the community aspect of it, like we have women from all over the country who come from completely different backgrounds, different jobs, kids are different ages, no kids, and they're like, wow, I just can't believe, however, I felt so isolated my whole life, or like in this season of life when
Yeah.
my friends aren't running at this pace or whatever, they all have now their tribe of women, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's other people like us, and so
We
it's
feel
great.
this. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I
we love
love
it.
it. Well, I am
Yeah,
so grateful for this conversation. I feel like I just selfishly learned so much and I look up to you so much. I think you're such an incredible business owner and how you hold yourself and just the confidence that you have is something I aspire to have. So I always like to end the conversation with leaving our listeners some advice if they're
yeah,
experiencing an in-between moment and they're looking for that moment of pause, we'll use that word,
yeah,
where they're
yeah,
like, okay, let me reflect on this. So I'd love to hear what
yeah.
advice you would give someone in the in-between.
Yes. So my advice is, I said it earlier, we all have a very special, unique set of talent, skills, and abilities. And what I've seen so much in the last 11 years is people are like, well, the market's saturated. They already do that. There's already enough. There's already so many social media companies. How is anyone going to find me? There's already the balloon arch girl in town that everybody goes to. So I'm not going to do it. Like have some confidence in yourself that you've been given this talent, whatever it is, to impact people, and your circle is completely different than the competitor down the street, and there is enough room for everybody. Like, especially in Oklahoma City, like, it is growing so rapidly fast here that there can be 100 marketing agencies, there can be 100 carpet cleaners, there can be 100 roofers, there is enough to go around, and people just need to, I just want people to like expand their mindset and their worldview and open their eyes to themselves and what they're capable of. And that there are so many people out there who need what they have, and just, you got to take the scary steps to do it.
Yes. And all those people have a different ideal audience. And
yes.
All of them. Because I think it's so funny when people are like, oh, you're friends. I'm friends with a lot of the social media girls out here in Vegas. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, because guess what? One of them only works with mom-owned businesses. And the other one only does trending. And the other one doesn't even do social media management, only does content creation, right? So like every single person, there's only certain people that are going to want to work with me and resonate with what I do and what I sell. And then there's going to be people that are better for them. And so not only are there enough people for everybody and enough to go around, there is a reason that every single person needs to go out and launch and do what they want to do, because your reason is different than all those other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. If we can just get women or people or business owners to understand that.
Yes. Everything. Amazing. There's enough for everyone. Well, Bri, I would love for you to share with my audience where they can connect with you, and then obviously all your brands, where they can get involved.
So in this new season of business, we're launching our social media with your very own Cassidy. And so you can see business related things. I talk about business on my personal all the time, but like our work and what we do and tips for getting found online and all that kind of stuff over on the BuzzBrand Instagram or LinkedIn. And then my personal Bri.Ramos is where you can find me for mom things, community things, women empowerment, statistics on human trafficking nationwide and in the state, and domestic violence. We didn't even get
to touch on all your work with everything else. I feel like we need a whole other episode for all that. Bri does a lot of things.
I talk a lot about, women-based things and the issues that are impacting them in society right now.
Yep.
On my Instagram, and then my family and my kids and the creative side of me and all that.
And then does the Pause community have a separate Instagram, or is it in through the BuzzBrand?
They do. They have a Pause community. If you type that in, you will find it. It's bare bones. We need someone's help keeping it up.
Megan and I talked about it.
Yeah. So Pause community has a account also. So.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the In Between podcast, and we'll catch you next time.